Welcome to the K-Files. Uno, dos, tres again. We got 3 of us this morning.
House full.
Yeah, we do. So glad to have Jimmy back. So glad you're here with us this morning. You know, I got 2 or 3 comments about last week. They said, golly, that was an interesting case, and I think you've got another one this week. So thank you for being willing to do this.
Glad to be back. I was in Roanoke Rapids this week at a restaurant there, and a guy said, hey, you the guy from Rocky Mount. You in Rocky Mount last Thursday. I said, I was in Rocky Mount at a few places last Thursday. He said, no, you on the TV. He said, and man, I heard so much about that case that I hadn't heard before. And he saw one of the family members, and he was like, thank you, y'all not forgetting that case because it's 40 years old, and it was a baby. And that just reiterated to me, don't matter how old a case is, 40 years later, that family still want justice.
Well, sure they do.
Yeah, there was a lot of chatter on Facebook about it as well.
Yeah.
On one of the pages that I'm a member of, a lot of people had commented about the episode last week. And and that's what we do. That's why we do what we do.
That's what we want.
Yeah, so
Exactly what we want.
he said, my hopes, he said, I didn't know the young lady. I moved to Roanoke Rapids after that, he said, but I met the family and the people in the Weldon area. He said, customer, he said, we just hope that we can get justice and more people think about it. So it just tells what we do, what you guys do every week, it matters and it's important.
Well, we
Now,
hope so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I see this past week that you have been put on the board or something with fighting crime?
We got
Crime Stoppers?
Halifax Crime Stoppers. We pay money for tips for cold cases as well. A lot of times, people just think that crime just recently happened, that what they're interested in, such as hopefully we'll talk about the case at Enfield one day with a young lady that was killed not even 2 years ago at a barn fire and stuff. That is really, she was a mother. That is an interesting case. Finding out so many witnesses, so many people were there for it not to be solved went any further. I think that's a case that we really need to look at, and a lot of those people that were there actually live in the Rocky Mount area, so we know they will be local viewers or somebody in their family. But Crime Stoppers, again, we're trying to get people to understand cold cases, we got money here under the cold cases, but on that Crime Stopper, so you got 2 or 3 avenues of getting paid for your information, and we like to get that information because that's the only way we're going to solve these crimes. The police have almost exhausted all means, and that one tip that somebody can give us, because that not cold case, kept saying cold case, but the Crime Stoppers line, information coming there so many times, it's that one little piece saying that person was there, and you talk to that person, sometimes that person may not have been the person, but he know who else, and from there you got to arrest. So it just reiterates looking at that, being involved with that already. Even last weekend we talked about some cases, how one piece of information can change the whole scenario.
One tip,
Yeah.
just one tip.
And people might be sitting at home thinking, well, golly, that's in Halifax County, or that's in Wilson County, or that's in Franklin County, that's in Edgecombe. Let me tell you something. You know this. I know it from law enforcement. Just because a crime took place in Halifax, those people could be from Nashville. Or a crime that occurs in Nashville, those people could be from Edgecombe County. People love to commute different areas to commit crime, and vice versa. That's how it works. A lot of times if you solve a case, B&Es or whatever it may be, you'll start seeing a sequence, similarities in cases, and the next thing you know, that one case that you solve turns into solving 5, 6, 8 cases that had a similar MO. But anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. We got a lot to talk about. Before we dive into the program, I just want to kind of remind everybody we've got an upcoming North Carolina Troopers Association Caisson Unit fundraiser. It's November the 18th. It's going to be out at Rocky Mount Mills. I've got tickets. It's all you can eat: oysters, shrimp, fish, barbecue, all the fixings. They usually have a like an auction, silent auction. It's a great event. Please come out. It's $75 a ticket, and the whole purpose of this fundraiser is to raise enough money to support the Caisson unit for a year. This is something that's outside of government. This is the Caisson unit is not particularly fundraised by tax revenue. It's private donations, so we count on a lot of funding from this fundraiser. So please come out November 18th, 2023, 5 to 9, Rocky Mountain Mills. I've got tickets. I'll deliver them to you. Please support the Highway Patrol.
Absolutely, and I can tell you from going in the past that it is a wonderful event. You feel good about what you've given to, the purpose of it. It's just so good. And the food is phenomenal. Oh, it's just, and the the social aspect. You see so many people you know. It's just a fun event for such a good cause.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
JP, if I could say one thing, a lot of people think that Caisson unit's just for the Highway Patrol, but it's for local law enforcement and firefighters. And you should see, I've been, unfortunately, at several of those funerals, but how special those families feel knowing that their loved one was carried out similar to what the president has carried out.
Yeah, that's right.
And with the fire department as well, so it's really just not a service for the Highway Patrol, it's a service for all law enforcement and firefighters, first responders.
And sadly, the Highway Patrol had to have one of the lead horses put down.
Mm-hmm.
They had been deployed, I believe, to the western part of the state to do a law enforcement funeral. The horse got out prior to the actual funeral itself. The horse got injured, and they had to put the horse down. So they've got to replace a horse. One of my neighbors, we were talking, he's like, man, $75, that's a lot for food. I said, look, you're not paying $75 for
Right.
food. You're paying probably $15 or $20 for food. And think of, I mean, the rest of it is, it's a cash donation to the North Carolina Highway Patrol Caisson unit. So if you're thinking about it from the aspect of, it's a meal for $75, it is a lot. But it's a donation to a good cause to help fund the Highway Patrol Caisson unit.
But you can't think about any fundraiser that
That's
way.
exactly right.
It is a fundraiser, and you really feel good when you give to these things. I mean, you live in the community, you want, and I know this is statewide, but you live in the community, and if it were one of your loved ones, you would certainly want them to be taken care of this way.
Yeah.
So, you got to think about it that way.
Yeah, and not to beat a horse to death, but my understanding, the horse training when they first originally started was with the honor guard out of DC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they went up and trained at Arlington National Cemetery.
Yes, sir. And last year at the Red Oak parade, the Caisson unit had the truck moving wall there, so that was just brought to Red Oak.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay. I bet that was a sight.
Yes, the kids really liked it, and I felt a extreme honor as the truck was passing, knowing that our friend co-worker,
Yeah.
Bobby Jean name
Mhm.
was up there, and his grave in sight and was less than a tenth of a mile from that truck turning. It was a moment that like bring back chills and just thinking, a lot of pride, and I know he would have been proud of his family.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
I think about Gene a lot.
yeah.
You can't help but go down 64 and see that sign where the bridge is dedicated in his name, and you stop and think about the career that we enjoyed, how many friends or co-workers that we've had to bury that were killed in the line of duty.
Yes.
Me and Sneak, he's from Middlesex, he was with the U.S. Marshal Service. I mean, we went to high school together, we grew up together, went to middle school together. Great guy, give his life for law enforcement to make his community a safer place to live, work, and raise a family.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is what this Caisson unit is also used to honor those local guys as well and stuff. And I think people forget that sometimes. It's not the Highway Patrol, that's for all law enforcement, first responders.
Government dignitaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's much more than people, it's much more than a meal or two for that $75.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, should we take a break before we're going to get into, tell us a little bit about before we go to break, and then we can really get into it. Jimmy, let us know what case we're doing today.
We're talking about Jalesa Reynolds, young lady from Scotland Neck, 18 years old, went missing. People just don't go missing.
No.
we talked, and I think JP was surprised this morning. We talked to one of the men that was there that located something. We're not going to say much now, but I think JP was a little stunned at the way things were done. This case is a cold case. It's been a while, but the great
We've
thing,
talked about it a lot.
yeah. But the great thing is a lot of those people still live there. People have an idea. Not only have an idea, people know if they just come forward, this is a case that we could close. I believe we can close some of these cases if people just step up. And that's what we're going to ask you to do when we come back, is step up and tell us something. Share your information.
That's exactly right. We'll be right back right after these messages. And welcome back to the K-Files. We have with us this morning Jimmy Silver and JP Barnes, and so glad to have them both with us this morning. JP is my regular, I don't know if I'm his sidekick now probably, but anyway, Jimmy's here back with us this morning with some really good information. I want to remind you, we always like to say, y'all, we need your help. We need the public's help for all of these cases, because one tip, as Jimmy said a while ago, one tip is all we need. And yours could be the one. But we have $15,000 in the pot. We have fundraisers to replenish the pot. For that reason, we have paid out 3 times. We have paid out. So we would like to pay out again. We want to give you money. We want to give you cash. It is in cash, and you will get it within 2 days, 48 hours. You will have your money. Also, you know, we want to give closure to families, and we want to get people off the street, because 9 times out of 10, Jimmy, would you agree that most of these people that have committed these crimes and they're not caught, they're repeat offenders? They are still doing something.
That's right. If it's, you know, as we say, a crime of passion, something domestic, slight chance, maybe not.
Right, exactly.
But most likely, we found in those cases, they may not bother the general public, but when they get in another relationship, new victim, things start back over. So those loved ones with a new relationship could be in danger. So it's about closing the case, but and getting justice, but really it's about protecting the community and others.
Well, remember, it is not, and you don't have to wait. It is not upon conviction. You don't have to wait to get your money for it to go through the court system and all of that. It is upon arrest. If the police departments or sheriff's departments, law enforcement departments tell us, or offices tell us that they have made an arrest, then we will pay out. So.
And a lot of these cases have additional funds available through the governor's office, through the state, or through family members.
Yeah.
So they could easily collect, you know, $20,000-$25,000 in some cases.
Absolutely. So, anyway, we'll get started on Jalesa Reynolds now.
Okay. First, I'm going to share with you the information that we have printed. Jalesa Reynolds. This case is from February 22nd, 2010. No one has seen or heard from Jalesa Reynolds since she went to the library in Scotland Neck on February 22nd, 2010. She logged off her Facebook account about lunchtime. At 1:40 p.m., she logged in again from a home computer along Cemetery Road. Reynolds didn't have a home computer and said friends shared that she would go to the library almost every day to use the internet and access Facebook. Jalesa was normally shy, but was more outgoing with people that she had met online. A massive search was conducted, and several other searches have been conducted over the years. Agencies and volunteers from across the state have been involved in these searches and have turned up empty-handed. Well, that last sentence, searches have been conducted and turned up empty-handed. Well, just based on the conversation that I had this morning, that contradicts that last sentence.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. There was a gag order in place on searchers from multiple searchers from other agencies. Some was community, fire services, fire department. There was something found, and we're going to talk a little bit. We're not going to disclose all the items just because the case, don't want to compromise anything in the case, but we will disclose a little bit of information about what was found, so we'll know that the investigators, some information was withheld for different reasons, but some of it was, I don't want to say this, but didn't utilize the best investigative skills and technology at the time, because 2010, that time DNA was relative, it was new, but people had a working ideal of it, because it'd been around at that time 8 to 10 years. And anything else you want to say? And this morning JP he heard one of the people that helped locate it, son, and we will go into it, and I think he was rather stunned. And this person was 20-some year career, reputation outstanding, and we won't call his name because of the gag order is probably expired, but just...
That's what I was fixing to ask before we, kind of jump into this, if there was an active gag order in place.
Yeah, and I talked with 2 or 3 people that was placed under the gag order. They say they didn't know if it was still in place, and they've been out openly talking, but they just been kind of careful what they're saying. But this morning, I think we'll talk about a little bit, some of that information, because I believe it can help push people to understand that we do need more information and to show that this case is solvable. This case don't have to be a cold case. It's a cold case because people that know something, it's been intimidated, or I don't even think intimidated, just afraid to come forward. And so many times people say, well, this law enforcement job's not my job. Law enforcement cannot be everywhere, and we need the community policing. That's why we had this thing called community policing. We still need the community to solve these cases and to prevent crime. But let's dive in. You ready to dive in, JP?
I'm ready.
Okay, last time she was seen at the Scotland Neck Library around 11 a.m. when she logged off a computer. And we have to talk about this to go back into time to understand. Back along that time frame, when you went to the library, you signed up to use, I don't know if you noticed, but you would sign up to use the computer 30 minutes usually. If nobody was there, they'd give you an hour. But it wasn't like now you could go and stay for hours on the computer, and people didn't, internet was relative new, and especially right now, some of those places down there still don't have internet at each and everybody's house, but back then there were only a few locations in town that had the internet, and you went and signed up for 30 minutes to an hour. So therefore, that was the reason that she signed off at that time, we're sure. Also, she was 18 years old, she wasn't in traditional school. She was enrolled at Halifax Community College in the GED program. But that was the reasoning about that. But let's talk about Jalesa. She was an 18-year-old, because so many times we get to talking about these cases and we put amount of money that Crime Stoppers have, a reward. We talk about everything, but we forget that this is somebody's daughter.
That's right.
She was a teenager, life to live. She was shy, but people knew her, still said she was shy, but once you got to know her, she had a outgoing, loving, sweet personality. Trusting, that may have been one of her downfalls.
Yeah.
The trusting relationship with people and stuff. Again, she was very shy, kept to herself most of the time, unless you knew her. So that tells me that it most likely she didn't have an interaction with a stranger that day or somebody, because if she's shy and kept to herself, she wouldn't have been so open to hopping in the car with somebody and just driving away that she didn't know. And we're going to talk a little bit about things. And she was a sweet girl, but she was also 5'2", so she was short.
Oh, she was short.
But she weighed 220, so and the weight matters a little bit in this case, because at 5'2", 220, it makes it a little bit harder to move somebody around.
That's right.
Without their consent.
Right.
Again, the shyness, her size, and her keep it to herself, that means that she had to know the perpetrator, suspect in this case. I just don't believe that someone could have just drug her away
Right.
that easily.
And it would depend on the size of the suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the suspect is a smaller person, he's got his hands full.
That's right.
So you're saying she probably willingly went with them because she knew them.
Oh, we're going to dive into it. There's a little bit more of that from research articles, talking with people over the years about this cold case in Halifax County. And I'm definitely not running for sheriff at this time, but I feel like it's important to me to bring out. I was going to run for sheriff back in 2018 or whatever, but due to residency, anyway, different things, I didn't run. But during that time frame, I retired from the highway patrol and I went back to my home county of Halifax, and I had been involved there. I said, I need to find out what's going on in the county for its crime rate, what's happening. And it took me down a path of finding out Halifax County has quite a few missing women. And they've done an article on WRIL. So I went into the community and talked to people just as I was going to become the sheriff and stuff. And that's one reason I'm here today. I made a commitment, win or lose, that I was going to try to help those cases. And I found it so interesting how an 18-year-old girl at 11 o'clock last being seen and last logging on the computer at almost around 2 o'clock could just go missing.
Disappear off the face of the earth.
Disappear off the face of the earth.
And that's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, in the afternoon. If you know anything about Scotland Neck, I've been there a few times growing up and stuff. Even though I lived in the county, Scotland Neck's on the other county, just didn't go there. But they park in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing goes on in Scotland Neck, even today, without somebody knowing.
I'll bet.
The main strip there, they have a lot of trucks coming through and stuff, but people go there. That's one of those places. If you go there, somebody can tell you if you're not going to do it, and they think you're halfway friendly. Because I went there just to go into some houses, and people say they're not home. They'll probably be back. They almost knew where they were going.
Their schedule.
Their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a community and just think, this was before internet and a lot of other things that was widely spread. People didn't have internet in the house. It's hard for me to imagine her leaving that library right there in the middle of town that everybody sees. The barber shop is across the street, community center, different things, that she could just walk away and vanish into thin air and stuff. But I can see her walking away, following her normal routine, and it not being noticed. And that's what we're going to talk about. Like I say, she truly was a shy person, stayed to herself. Probably not the most confident, because I read some, back then they used MySpace instead of Facebook.
That's right.
MySpace.
I remember that.
And I believe it posted it earlier, a statement she had in there. But in the end, she was like I said, a teenager, and she probably wanted a relationship with a boy. Nobody talks about a relationship with a boy. But we found on one of her MySpace, they left it public, and it was up there, and a young lady was doing the research. It's right up there on the screen now. And last login said, "Loving my boo, always, no matter what. Mood, feeling all right, and for right now, but missing him." That's what she said. What does that tell you?
Missing him.
What does that tell you guys? There was a man in her life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but she wasn't known to have a boyfriend. That's why I say again, she was a normal teenager,
Yes.
18 years old, wanting a relationship like most girls do with a boy. And her cousins talked about her, said how she thought that she could easily be manipulated.
Can you show that slide again?
Yeah.
What's the date on that? February, is that 14th?
No,
or is-
February 22nd. That was the day that she went missing. That is the day that she went missing.
Interesting.
Yes. And so that was the day that she went missing. She said she was missing him. That would lead me to think when she left that library, the boy or person that she was missing was somewhere close by.
Uh-huh.
And that is key in these cases. We talk about it. But
But it
this,
says she logged in, Jimmy, again after she left the library. She logged in again from a home computer
On
on Cemetery Road. Whose house was that?
that's what we're gonna talk about. There's so
Okay.
many, there's so
I
many.
get so excited
Me
I
too.
get ahead.
It's so many, and the reason going this way, I just want you to start thinking about this day and having it in your mind laid out. She was at the library because it's important, these steps. She was at the library, logs off at 11. We know that they got time constraints during that time frame on how long you can use the computer.
Yeah.
She said there that she's missing her boo and basically saying she's going to see him. So there's so many unanswered questions. This case gets fascinating. Not just question who, what, when, how, but like doing so many attempts to recover information from everything from the computer. You know, they got what they call a computer forensic. They go back and take your computer and tell when you logged in, who you were talking to, conversations and stuff.
Even if it's been deleted,
Yes,
they can
that's-
access it. Yes.
It's like, in this case, why wasn't the computers, because it was relatively new, but they were doing it at SBI. As we talked with one of the witnesses today, the searcher, so I say witness and searcher because he was a witness, we're bringing out searchers. He never was talked to by the FBI, only the SBI. And I think, JP, the thing is, 1.5 years later, after locating something, but there was a gag order put in place. Normally, gag orders are not put in place.
Right.
That was done early in the game. They placed a gag order on the people that went out and searched. And so if you hadn't found anything, if you just went out and walked around the field in the woods, would you put a gag order out for nothing?
And I want the public to understand a gag order is rare. Very, very rare.
Then why?
Okay, look at Trump, okay? The defense wants them to put a gag order on Trump because they don't want Trump to get out talking about the facts.
So they don't want, if they find anything, they don't want it
They
talked
don't.
about.
They don't like the way it looks.
Right.
They don't like the where the evidence appears to be somebody somewhere connected. And this is
Right.
just my, and I'm not talking about this case. I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah.
They do not like the appearance of where the evidence looks like it's going, and they don't want you to talk about it.
Wow.
And that's where we're going to. This case has so many twists and turns. And it's not a high profile case, really. She's a 18-year-old,
Right.
basically had dropped out of school, going to get a GED. But, every time I look at it or talk with someone, I find out something new, that this person knew this person. And at first it seemed like it's not important because little Johnny know Willie, but in the end, you'll see why the gag order was in place. You'll see why we're at this point in the case. But
Do we need to take a break before we jump into
we
this?
probably do, and we'll come back after the weather and finish this case up.
and I assure you, we'll tell you why the gag order's in place.
Wow. Welcome back to the K-Files, and we're going to continue with this case on Jalesa Reynolds.
Okay, and we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit because we want everybody to understand what's happened. She went missing that day from the library. She logged off, but shortly after that, she logged on at a residence on 200 Cemetery Road in Scotland Neck. From there, she hadn't been seen since then, but as we learned, the suspect in this case was a sex offender that lived at the house, registered sex offender that had been recently released from prison for rape. So, like I said, technology and information back then, she may have not known that.
You know she did.
It was common.
And there he is.
Yes, that was the suspect in that case. Still has been the only point of interest, personal interest, that they have talked about in this case. That house was the last place that she logged on the computer at. To me, it was several missteps here, like the computer. You would have thought that computer would have been seized to go into forensics and see where,
One of the first things.
Yes. You would think the one at the library, I haven't heard any talk of that being seized. You would have thought the one at the house. Even make it farther crazy in that they knew that she had last logged on there from an account at that location through the IP address, whatever stuff. They did not search the house. Check this out, before nearly 19 months later, before they executed a search warrant at the house.
19 months.
Computer never taken. Not that now they didn't indicate it in any records. Again, we talked about this gag order we said we was going to talk about briefly. The fire department personnel, forestry went out, volunteer groups. They even had a group from East Carolina, with archaeologists. I was surprised that archaeologists, they went out with them. They had help, assistance from agencies, but I never saw the FBI called in. That was a little bit surprising with her age, internet and stuff, and just in case all that was surprising. But the most interesting thing was the mayor down to the searchers were put under a gag order. As JP alluded to earlier, gag orders are not normally done in these type cases.
Mm-mm.
You know, most time gag orders done is in white collar crimes because people are trying to talk about, you know, evidence or something. Usually a high profile murder with a celebrity and stuff. But a gag order was in place. And I let JP have a brief moment and heard some of the conversation with one of the searchers out there that day. They don't talk about, they said, what was it in the book that nothing was found?
It says here, nothing was turned up, empty-handed.
We know that's not factual. The, I call him confidential informant or whatever, but been knowing him over 25 years. He's known in his working field, not pointing too much, being very professional, but he was one of the searchers that day. Roughly 3 days later, he saw drag marks, followed the drag marks, found some clothing items. I'm not going to say what they are because it could compromise the case, but without a doubt, as we talked and I said she was last seen wearing a pink shirt, blue jean jacket with flowers on the back and tan colored pants, he said, I can remember that pretty much like yesterday. As he told you, I believe he's told you the same thing about he smelt the accelerant.
Yeah.
What it attempted to burn.
Gas soaked.
Yeah, gas soaked, but the clothes had been wet. There was a pond near the house. The suspect in this case had horses. At first, he kind of denied knowing her, but a few days later, when they came to him about the computer use and knowing it logged on, he basically owned up to, yeah, I know her, and she had been by to use my computer, was told to change, and she was really fascinated, like my horses and stuff. But another interesting thing, again, the suspect hadn't been out of prison that long for the rape charges and stuff. And
So he lied about her being there.
mm-hmm.
He lied about knowing her. He lied. Yeah, I don't
Right.
like where this is going.
And he knew he had to say he did know her because of the computer.
That's exactly
You've been
right.
found out, so now you better,
To me,
because
it sounded like what he started owning up to because they knew it, and he probably had talked to a lawyer at some point, is because, you know, sometimes a lawyer tell you need to own up to this, they know this, you own up to what they know and deny what they don't know
right.
and stuff. And yeah, think about this. That's why I said a little bit about the size and shyness, all this stuff matters. At 220 pounds, 5'2",
That's a lot of.
she could not be easily moved
That's right.
if she didn't want to be moved.
That's why you see the drag marks too,
Yeah.
because he couldn't pick her up.
That's right.
and-
But from the initial going missing from the library, she had to go somewhere, which was his house, I believe, that somebody that she knew. That's why nobody saw her hitchhiking out of town, walking out of town, catching a ride. She wouldn't really be seen. It would not be anything out of the ordinary because she had been to his house before.
Mhm.
You know, you don't notice things that a lot of times you don't notice the normal routine that happened. You notice what did not
Out of the
happen that
ordinary.
day. Just like the other case when the dog did not bark, you know, no barking.
Yeah.
Didn't bring anybody attention, but when you look at it, from the case last week, dog didn't bark because knew the suspect, knew the husband. So this is another interesting thing. There's so many things that wasn't answered or taken care of in this case, like the computers. Again, no hacking on that. That is a big thing. Your footprint on a computer.
Oh, yeah.
Tells-
Tells you. It'll tell the
Absolutely.
real you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And October 2012, roughly 2.5 years later, before they did that search at the house.
That's ridiculous.
With all
Yeah,
that
that's-
information, and again, this search that was done, where these clothing items were found with a cylinder, was basically in the backyard of a registered sex offender, rapist, and so, what were they doing? They took the case. This case was actually taken to the district attorney by the chief, Joel Williams, and they decided not to do anything with it. But he had considerable evidence, but he didn't have a body. But so many jurisdictions, they're afraid of prosecuting the case without a body. But
A lot of DAs, though, are also hesitant based on how a case was pursued. If every I wasn't dotted and every T crossed like it should have been, he knows how this will play out in court, and it will embarrass him as prosecutor. You know,
But there's a case in Tarver right now that we talk about all the time, that in Edgecombe County, let me say, and they can't prosecute it. They won't prosecute it. They talked about this when they've come from law enforcement, because they don't have the body, but they know who the suspect
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You know, the one with the daughter.
in very rare cases, they can actually pursue a case without a body, but I'm here to tell you it's very rare, isn't it?
Yeah, very
rare.
So they found clothing in the backyard of this house on Cemetery Road.
that's it, near the house.
With gas accelerant.
Gas accelerant. There was a pond. They had a dive team come out, couldn't locate, but my understanding of the pond, it wouldn't be big enough or sufficient enough to actually sink her, and that's one reason we feel like the clothes may have been wet and tried to burn, because
Panicked.
panic and had to move the body again. The owner of this, the suspect, the owner again had a horse trailer. Horse trailer have a low ramp. That's something you can easily and not bring a lot of attention to move a body. Got to remember, suspects go to jail. They get caught the first time. They get smarter. They learn what
That's
not to do.
exactly
That's right.
right. That's right.
Okay. Then, further involved with this is the suspect, my understanding, his wife had, and I'm not going to talk much about her because I don't believe she had anything to do with her, but it does matter. She had a job in local government. That she
So
was,
he was married.
yeah, he was married, well respected, his wife was, and those factors together, it's like sometimes you can be involved, we just have to be honest, politics and family members, sometimes people are a little bit more hesitant when they got a weak case about prosecuting.
That's right.
And so all those factors, you take this young lady, she was 18 years old, shy, her family, I think she come from a good family, but probably didn't have a lot of resources to fight and bring this case to the media. So it was easier in some ways to let this thing kind of fade away, or as they say, let it play out. And we've seen how it play out. That's why we're reaching out today to that person that may know something about this case. Again, the gag order is the most interesting thing. Gag orders are put in place usually to protect someone or the integrity of the case. They said they didn't find anything, but we know that they did find something. They're saying the case is foul play. How many young ladies, teenagers, would go missing and part of their clothes show up, but they not show up?
Well, Jimmy, I know this is a case that we could probably talk about for 2 or 3 hours live.
Right.
I just want to say thank you for your commitment in these cold cases.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on. Anything else you want to close with on that?
Any main point?
Yeah, say you got to look at the main points. She went missing, wasn't seen. Last time she was actually seen at the library by anyone besides the suspect, Mr. Davis. That was the last time. But we do know her account for MySpace, which is similar to Facebook, was last activated roughly 1:40 something p.m. at the suspect house. To me, everything points that she was there. That was the last place she seen. And we don't want to hold a person's past or mistakes against them, but he was a convicted rapist, sex offender. She was an 18-year-old girl. She said she wanted to see and miss her boo.
Mm-hmm.
If she had a boyfriend that she could be seen out with,
She'd have been seen with him.
She'd have been seen with him. Again, suspect was married, older. That case would probably have to be, that relationship would have had to been hidden. So all the facts in this case point, it's a case built on circumstances, but there are some physical evidence there. My question is, the closed items that was found, what did the DNA results for fibers turn up? What would the
if it was even tested?
If it was tested, that's correct. This case, from the beginning to end so far, doesn't seem like it was well prepared. But that's okay. We don't want to hold the police for their mistakes, but we want people to speak out what happened. We got a new sheriff, we got SBI, we got other means. She's been entering the missing exploit with kids. There's other ways of getting your information out there if you don't trust local law enforcement, that we can see justice. So if you seen something, know something, heard someone say something, many times cases are broken because someone had jailhouse talk. Please share that information if you have. Again, there's reward money from the governor's office, Crime Stoppers, Cold Case.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again, JP, for being up here.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. And that's all for the K-Files today. Join us next week.